with this big news with Poway Unified School District, and there's a case being brought to the Supreme Court. Now, this one is interesting to me for a lot of different reasons. I mean, number one, I live in Poway. And we've covered a lot with the Poway Unified School District and the challenges and issues that they're facing. But at the same time, this involves current school board member, I think she's the president of the council, Michelle O'Connor Ratcliffe, and former school board member TJ Zane, who I both know. I know both of these individuals because I ran as a candidate in 2014 for school board, and they were my opponents. So I got to know them. And so this story kind of has a little bit of a personal connection with me. But the big news is that the Supreme Court is going to hear this Poway case on whether public school officials can block people on social media. So that's pretty intriguing, right? So let's kind of break down what happened here with Poway and how this thing got all the way to the Supreme Court. So this case concerns, TJ Zane, Michelle O'Connor Ratcliffe. They had built their own Facebook and Twitter pages that they built as part of their campaign. And what they did is, as after they were elected, they kept those accounts open, but they shared a lot of content on those pages that was about school board news and school board events. And it sort of became their official or so-called unofficial school board social media account where they conducted business. They engaged with their constituents. They interacted with the people in Poway and Rancho Bernardo, Rancho Peñasquitos, Carmel Mountain Ranch, Forest Ranch, Westwood, Del Sur, Sabre Springs, this whole area, Poway Unified. And it was kind of like the way they communicated with their constituents. Well, what happened is that we had a number of people, respond to those messages. And, for the most part, they're very friendly or supportive. But there is a couple here in San Diego, Chris Garnier and his wife, Kimberly Garnier, who have been very outspoken, have been challenging the school board on a wide range of issues. And this goes back to, probably about 2016, 2017, when John Collins was the superintendent of Poway Unified. There was already a lot of heat with him because of the $1 billion bond. Well, there were a lot of other questions and issues related to Michelle O'Connor Ratcliffe and TJ Zane because they were supportive of former school board superintendent John Collins. They backed him even through all of this disgrace, because John Collins was embezzling money from children. There was a lot of unethical business contact and the way that they managed their affairs at Poway Unified. Now, John Collins has since been removed from his post and has been replaced by Marion Kim Phelps. And I think that's now going on about 4 or 5 years. But so this case has been cooking, for a number of years. And the Garnier family have been challenging the TJ Zane and Michelle O'Connor Ratcliffe. They have been sending them emails, about John Collins, about racial issues at Poway Unified. They weren't getting response. So they started sending messages and responses to their Facebook pages, their Twitter pages. And if you know the Garnier family, they're very passionate. I mean, some would say they're pretty aggressive. They're not, I wouldn't say they cross the line. They're not abusive. They're usually using good language. They're not, I would say, any more aggressive than you might see people that are upset with their congressman or their mayor or their state governor. I mean, they expressed their views and they were sharing them and they were challenging these school board members to hold John Collins accountable, to address a lot of the issues at Poway Unified. They weren't getting a response when they went to the public meetings. They weren't getting response when they went and sent email, or they got very little response. So they started responding in the social media content comments. And these school board officials didn't like hearing it. They didn't want it. And so what they did is they blocked them. Now, normally, if you are an individual and there's just some a-hole that's like, trolling you, and you can block them. That's fine. But these are public officials. These are elected officials. These are people who use their social media account to engage with their constituents. No different than if you were to call your congressman and, want to express your thoughts or opinions on a bill before Congress. And it turned out that they blocked your phone number, or they hang up on you every time you call because they didn't want to deal with you. I mean, not only is that completely unethical and immoral for a school board or elected official to ignore their constituents, or and frankly to rudely ignore them by blocking them, but it's a whole other level when you have essentially government officials blocking people's speech, blocking their ability to communicate. And that's what the First Amendment is really all about. The First Amendment is about government regulating speech, about government determining what's good speech or bad speech and what's allowed and what's disallowed. And while these were accounts for their social media that had their personal name on them, they were, de facto official government, how should I say, political platforms, how they engage with their populace. And so that's the thing. Are there Twitter and Facebook pages individual pages? Are they pages that were connected to their actual political profile and their campaign? So to me, this is interesting. And so the case went and, was originally ruled in the favor of the Garniers, that it was a breach of the First Amendment. It was then later appealed, and I think it went to the Ninth Circuit Court? It went to a number of other different levels, and it kept getting appealed, and now it's finally at the Supreme Court level. So it's turning into sort of a landmark case that affects a lot of local politicians, of whether or not they can essentially shut out their constituents on social media. And then a lot of this obviously is, this cultural transition of social media and how it's affecting how people interact and engage with other individuals. But I'm generally supportive of the Garniers on this one. I mean, I get it if you're an elected official and you have particular constituents that are on you, that are challenging you and are relentless. You still have to take the high road, ethically, morally, and in my opinion, legally. You can't just shut them out, and especially on social media. I mean, you can pick and choose who to respond to, but you shouldn't block them entirely. I mean, come on. I mean, this is what representative democracy is supposed to be all about, right? So that's kind of the debate. Is it a personal page? Is it a official campaign page? Are these private citizens? Are they public officials? How does the rule apply? I mean, let me know your thoughts in the comments and questions. We'll be happy to take those. So, yeah. Wow. You think about this too, is that Poway Unified, this little old school district here in North County, inland San Diego County, it's been in the news so much for a school district. That's really amazing. There was, the $1 billion bond where they borrowed $100 million and agreed to pay it back with roughly $1 billion. That became a national disgrace, was on all the national media. And the state of California made those kinds of bonds illegal. They've since made them illegal. We've had the controversy with our school board superintendent, John Collins, the embezzlement, the breach of ethics, a lot of very questionable practices, and he was found guilty in a court of law and was removed from his post. We've had racial issues at Poway Unified that there's been racism within the school district. Some people say it's out of control. Other people say it's overblown, but that's been pumped up in the media. And then, of course, we have all the cases with these parents' rights community that have been challenging the COVID policies. The mask policies have been challenging a lot of the CRT, critical race theory, curriculum. And it's interesting that a school district here in Poway is in the news so often, but here it is. They're going to be going before the Supreme Court. Now, the official statements from O'Connor, Radcliffe, and Zane is say they welcome this, because they want to protect the free speech rights of them, because they say that public officials also have free speech rights, and they do. But I think this is a tricky one. I'm very curious to see how this goes, particularly with the Supreme Court, is kind of 6-3 in the favor of kind of a more conservative view. And conservatives these days tend to be free speech advocates. So, what do you think is going to happen here? I'm curious. Okay,